Howdy. It's been a while since I've been in front of the camera. I'm looking a little ratty since I forgot to shave, and skin's looking a little upset. Actually, I have the technology. Easy. So a lot has happened since the last time I was in front of the camera. Mainly three things. One, I have a new camera. It's finally happened. I'm not the biggest camera guy. Honestly, I was looking at a lot of that stuff while I was shopping around, and I was just kind of amazed how people fucking afford this, you know? But I'm using a Sony ZV-E10 right now. I've been looking to upgrade for a long time just to any kind of good camera, and this is, from what I know, a pretty solid 4K camera in general. This is my first video to actually get some practice with it, so forgive me if some things look a little shitty. The second big thing, you'll probably already know since I make a lot of community posts, but I quit my day job. It's a bit sudden and a little sooner than I had even really anticipated, but it's an awful company with an even worse supervisor, so I was already kind of looking to leave anyways, but this is just kind of a good time. For a few months, I will be working on the channel as close to full-time as I possibly can. I don't like making promises I can't keep when it comes to like video production, but just know that I'm going to be trying to put out as many videos as I can, but some days I wake up and I go, I'm not really feeling it. I can't do anything about that, except work through it, I guess. Quitting my day job would not have been even remotely an option for me if it was not for you guys in particular. Here on YouTube, when you're watching, you generate ad rev, and especially the people on Patreon. The combination of YouTube and Patreon gives me a lot of peace of mind when it comes to making the decision I did. Now I'm not worried about having to cover my monthly bills at the very least. It's I'm very privileged to be in the position where this is even an option for me, and I wanted to thank you all from the bottom of my heart. But anyways, the third major thing is what brings us to this video today. I was given an invitation to the 6th annual Monster Bash event. I wanted to say YouTube event, but it's not quite a YouTube event. But for those who don't know what Monster Bash is, it was an event that was created by Trent from Miscast, although this year it is hosted by Terran from Conjured Craft. Well, nice guy. Anyways, all the attendees draw 6 cards out of a deck made by everybody else. Then with your 6 cards, you generate a monster based on what you have, whether it's sculpting or illustrating or even writing, whatever kind of artistic style that you choose to represent that monster with. But, you know, since I'm a mini guy, I'm gonna make a mini. This is actually my second time entering Monster Bash, the last time being Monster Bash 3, which was a little more open invite. It was also 3 years ago, which, like, it doesn't really feel like 3 years ago. Maybe it's just me. Anyways, if you guys probably couldn't tell, this is going to be a very free-form video, not a lot of scripting, since I'm still working on a proper video on the side. This right here is technically just a Halloween bonus video, although it's not super spooky. Editing John will put something spooky on the screen right here at the very least, so you can be like, ah. But in the meantime, let's bash a monster. So let's take a look at the cards I drew. As each card was made by a different artist, I'll put the whole card on screen just so you guys can see who made what, because even just the cards themselves, there's some like really cool drawings, you know. My pool of cards consisted of a beetle, some mushrooms, a shell, a little mouth, a little crab claw, and some feathers. I sat on these for a while, trying to just kind of get a vibe of something I wanted to make. But at the very least, the beetle and the mouth together had me think of like some sort of like big insect brute, you know? I didn't really think of the mouth as the mouth, but like a mouth as in like some kind of big power kind of vibe, if that makes sense. And honestly, my thinking kind of stopped there. This was a very free-form project. I kind of just did it as I went. Much like my last Monster Bash submission, I started looking around for an STL that I could use as a base and start sculpting off of. While I do like looking around CG Trader and Thingiverse is okay whenever the website fucking works, I usually opt to looking at My Mini Factory. Over there, I found a really cool model called the Beetle Hulk, sculpted by the Dragon Trappers Lodge. It was kind of the vibe I was immediately thinking of, like a big, brutish insect kind of thing, and I figured it'd be the perfect base. All the parts were pre-supported, although they were just a tad bit too large for my printer. I'm still using my old Anycubic Photon, but yeah, that doesn't have much life left in it right now. Either way, I just scaled it down just enough for the whole Mini and its supports to fit on the build plate, and printed it out with some water washable resin. With the model in hand, I felt like the creative juices would be flowing a little more. I considered, making giant bird wings for it, ripping the head off and just putting like one big gaping mouth, scattering feathers and little bits around, like make it some kind of like fucked up hell chicken. I wasn't really sure. Like I said, I was doing the project as I went, and I found that was what made the project fun for me. Normally, I tend to do a whole slew of planning beforehand. Like, for something like my Mythos Angelica Mortis video, I had sketched out and planned and set up everything for maybe like a month and a half before I even started making anything, And this was a very nice exercise in, just going with whatever random impulse I had. Nevertheless, the first step, as you can see here, is removing the majority of the support scars. For the areas where it made sense, like on the big shell portions, I opted to just leave the bumps and scars from the supports on to kind of give it like a little bit of a texture. You could say it looks a little lazy, and it is kind of lazy, but just a little experimentation to see how it actually, looks with some paint on it. The underside also had these big holes, obviously to let the resin drain out of it while printing, and I'd opted to fill those holes with a little bit of broken toothpick and some smooth milliput over the newly filled hole. I really didn't worry about getting a smooth result, just, something that's smooth enough. It's on the underside of the model, no one's really going to be looking there, so, as I've said before, it's time to use a little strategic negligence. Now, while I was filling the holes, I had a bit of a random, Jimmy Neutron brain blast. One of the cards I drew were like these snail shells. And I was like, well, you could probably say a beetle's got shell, and you just kind of lump it in there. But, okay, this is going to be a little bit of a tangent, so just bear with me. When I was looking at the shells, I kept imagining them as some kind of weapon as opposed to like a defensive kind of thing. And my immediate thought jumped back to Metroid Prime 2. There's an enemy found within the Sanctuary Fortress called an Ing Smasher, which is a tall bipedal humanoid with these giant spheres on its fists. Basically, to keep it simple, its job is to punch shadow demons. That's a very gross oversimplification, but for this purposes, look at it. It's got big smashy hands, and I was like, you know what? What if my guy had big smashy hands? Not only was this a good way to incorporate my card, but, as a brain-rotted Metroid fan, my mind lives within the Metroid concept art books, and I just fucking love the Ing Smasher. This is one of the coolest things ever. To incorporate my new Metroid-inspired weapons, the hands of the larger set of arms had to come off. I used my spare clippers, making sure to cup the whole thing when I clipped it, so whenever the part actually did come off, it didn't fly off and, take an eye out or kill someone. In the process of doing that, I actually broke off the hand of one of the smaller arms, but I decided to just keep working. Now it actually came down to making the snail shells. What I did was I mixed together green stuff and milliput, which makes an epoxy mixture that I just really enjoy in general. It's got a little bit of flex. You can sand it, you can sculpt it. It's kind of like my favorite sculpting material. Granted, it's not an end be all, best product, but it does like 90% of the things that I want green stuff or milliput to do, just better. From this putty mixture, I rolled like a cone sort of shape, like a log, but with one fat end. Starting from the smaller end, I struggled to get my camera in focus, obviously, but I rolled it up into a nice little snail shell. My first attempt wasn't too hot, and it was really out of focus, so I did another one here. As you can see, I also put a little divot on the opening of the shell, just to, lend it a little bit of realism. Whenever the shells had cured, I attached them where the hands used to be and filled the gap with a little bit of green stuff. I was really struggling with the left arm, so check this out. I'm holding both ends with super glue, and I'm using super glue accelerator, but I'm holding it in my mouth. I just thought that was kind of funny. With the hands done, I brought myself back to the smaller hand that I had broken off earlier. I figured this would be a good way to implement the crab claw that I had drawn from the deck, but not exactly like a direct crab claw. What I ended up doing was cutting the hand off of the left sub-arm, I guess, splitting it in half and redistributing the fingers across both arms. While this is not exactly a functional crab claw, I don't know, it's just I thought it was kind of a clever fix to fix a broken part, and I liked it as a problem-solving solution, so I just kind of left it. And honestly, I think it looks a little better than just having two little claws down there. I don't know, aesthetics. With both sets of arms complete, I decided to permanently attach the set of large arms to the mini with some super glue. When I initially drew my cards, I had looked at the mushrooms as like maybe either as a basing element or maybe to grow fungus off of the beetle, give it like an old forest protector kind of vibe. What I ended up doing was essentially planting a whole bunch of mushrooms over the top side of the beetle. This was done pretty easily. What I did was just drilled a hole into the mini, put a little piece of paper clip down there, and then I took a wee bit of putty and stuck it on top, not really caring about the uniformity of the shape because, mushrooms. With the beetle, snail, and now mushroom aesthetic kind of combined, I had really set my eye on the forest guardian angle, and I thought that feathers from rare birds attached to the creature as kind of like tribute would be kind of cool. So I got to work sculpting a whole bunch of feathers. The feather sculpting method that I use is pretty much word for word taken from Juan Hidalgo's feather sculpting tutorial, although I did try a couple of new things. Some things worked, some didn't, but this is a big experimentation piece for me. I'll quickly go over the basic structure of making a semi-decent feather out of green stuff. The first thing you do is make a flat, oval-shaped patty. Then you cut the stem of the feather into the shape. From there, you flatten the putty on both sides of the stem, which leaves the center of the feather raised, with the rest of the feather being kind of, on the low end. Take your knife and cut out the base of the feather, and then also the general shape of the feather. Then at the final stages, you just cut a bunch of lines into your feather with a little bit of variation. Not every feather is the same. But whenever you get, good at it, you can pump out a basic feather like this in about, 3-5 minutes. It goes pretty quickly. Now, I had done this next part on camera, but apparently I had forgotten to hit record, so, whoops. But I had wrapped a bunch of long green stuff bits around the arms of my beetle, which will serve as like a decorative rope to hang the feathers from. The feathers were attached with a little bit of gel super glue, and, I think it looks pretty cool. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but, I don't really care. I'm just going with it. I'm having fun. I was nearing about the end of the window I had to actually work on this submission, so I ended up putting some green stuff blobs underneath the feet and attaching it to a 50mm base. This base was given my normal treatment of volleyball beach sand and cat litter. Then the whole thing was given a zenithal prime. I don't normally paint in a way that really takes a lot of advantage of the zenithal prime, but from a YouTuber perspective, it just makes the model a little easier to see on camera, so that's really the only reason why I do it. So as previously mentioned, I had an aged forest guardian kind of in mind, maybe a beetle with a good bit of like moss and lots of browns and tans and, you know, a lot of natural colors in mind when I first started painting. But somewhere I impulsively decided to try out a red base coat for the Mini. I realized that the red is not exactly the original aesthetic I was trying to hit with the Mini, but I was just kind of in the mood to paint something red, you know? And after painting the beetle red, I looked at it and I said, "Oh fuck, I painted Mega Kabuterimon." And I wasn't actually too mad. I'm not a Digimon kind of guy. Like I don't really know a lot about it, but Mega Kabuterimon is probably my favorite Digimon, or anything in the insectoid Kabuterimon family tree. So I wasn't really too mad. I decided to say, fuck it, and I'll just roll with it. All of the red shell bits were given an orange dry brush, and the hands and shell areas were given a base coat of like a dark blue, maybe like a navy. Navy is probably a better way to describe that. I used a little bit of teal on the mushrooms, and I also brought that down onto the shell. Snail shells in general have very nice, like, decorative designs on it. So I figured, you know what? I'll bring the color down and make a design at the same time. With the base coats and the dry brushing all done, I gave the entire Mini a wash of diluted brown from Army Painter, making sure that it doesn't pool up too heavy in some areas, and I also avoided the wings completely. After the wash was dry, my girlfriend reminded me that we have this old pearlescent color shifting paint from a line called Turbo Dork. At her suggestion, she said paint it over the wings, to make them all nice and sparkly, and I thought it was a cool idea, so I obliged. The effect is kind of hard to see on camera, mainly because I don't know what I'm doing with this camera still, but trust me, it does add something to the final presentation. Nice, sparkly, pearlescent wings. Yeah, it looks pretty good. This entire project had taken a little longer than I expected, and it was starting to interfere with my normal schedule that I had in mind. I don't normally do bonus videos like this, so I did a very quick foresty jungle base using some Italian seasoning, painted the base rim, and called it quits. And here's the completed beetle. As previously stated, I didn't have a lot of time to work on this Mini, but I did enjoy the process of making it. Like, I'm not a very... Okay, well, I can be a pretty impulsive person, but when it comes to planning videos out and everything for this channel, I'm usually pretty meticulous. This project ended up nowhere near where I expected it to, but that's kind of the appeal, Like I said, I didn't expect to make a fucking Digimon, but here I am. This was also just really, really good practice for working with my new camera. I learned a lot of things that I shouldn't do, a lot of things to do. This thing has a slow-mo feature that I haven't even touched at all, which could be useful for a thing or two. But in general, I really like the small amounts of detail on the model, like texture-wise, and the new camera really picks it up. Most importantly, I can get these really, really close-in shots that I just couldn't do on my phone, and the quality doesn't suffer at all. Like, look at this. This is this is awesome. I knew that my previous recording setup was holding me back to an extent, and I'm finally glad that I can, not graduate a little bit, I guess. Like, these really close-up spins are just gorgeous, and you guys have my undying gratitude for this. Like, this is, like, the fact that I can make this because of you guys is awesome. So thank you. And thank you to Terran from Conjured Craft for extending the invite to have the opportunity to make something like this at all, because with my current schedule, I just wouldn't have. And, having, being able to say, all right, do this so you don't look like an idiot, it gave me the push to just generally get out of my comfort zone, and I had a lot of fun. Actually, technically, thank you to Aaron from Summon Lesser Maker, because he was the one who extended the invite to me. Hey, this guy, could we invite this guy? And he said yes. But, you get it. You get it. So, yeah, just a really fun little, not exactly Halloween inspired build. In fact, there's pretty fucking nothing about this build that's Halloween-y. But, I don't know, it felt kind of good to go back to the channel roots, because I was making a lot of random things back then, and it's just fun. It's just fun. Make a little guy. You don't even have to have an idea like I did. Just make a little guy. Little guys are fun. But yeah, this was not supposed to be a long video. I just want to say thank you to everybody on YouTube and Patreon. Thank you for the invite to Monster Bash. I'm just very thankful to be able to do this right now, especially in such a transient period of my life. I really could just sit here and keep saying thank you. In fact, I did. There's about 7 minutes of narration that I cut out. Pretty much just saying thank you and over. So I'm just going to end it here. But happy Halloween, guys. Go make something spooky. Go make a little dude. It's fun. And I'll see you guys, I'll see you when I see you.